The internet erupted in a frenzy, but it wasn't just another celebrity spat. King Harris hadn't merely disrespected 50 Cent. He had waded headfirst into one of hip-hop's most volatile feuds, and he did so in a way that left no room for doubt or forgiveness. This wasn't about a simple clapback or defending family honor. This was reckless escalation, a fire lit on camera for the entire world to watch. What made the incident catastrophic wasn't just the anger in King's voice, it was the target. Sabrina Jackson, 50 Cent's mother, whose tragic murder shaped his entire persona, his career, and the unyielding, hard-edged survival instincts that made him one of hip-hop's most feared figures, became the center of King's assault. 50 has never made jokes at her expense, never allowed casual mockery. The reverence for that loss is nearly sacred in his world. King didn't tiptoe around the boundary. He obliterated it. In a raw, expletive-laden video that immediately went viral, King dared to say what no one else would. He reportedly told 50 Cent to post her grave, allegedly referencing images of her headstone while mocking her death, challenging the memory that 50 Cent has protected fiercely for decades. Across Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, the reaction wasn't shock, it was a collective freeze. Silence fell, not because no one cared, but because everyone understood the gravity of the line King had crossed. Within hours, discussions dominated every corner of the hip-hop internet. "Nah, this kid just signed his own downfall," read one viral comment. 50 gone, ruin him for life, warned another. People weren't debating clever comebacks or viral exposure. They were speculating on survival, both social and digital. It's important to understand where this comes from. King Harris, born into extreme privilege, has always walked in two worlds. He grew up with fame at his doorstep, cameras flashing from infancy, luxury homes, reality TV exposure on T.I. and Tiny, the family hustle and the public scrutiny that comes with being the child of two hip-hop icons. But the access, the wealth, the protection, it never satisfied his hunger for respect. The respect King wanted wasn't inherited or earned through privilege. He craved the kind of street-level, hard-earned respect that defined T.I.'s early career. Respect fought for in the streets, in studios, in battles where survival wasn't guaranteed. He wanted proof he could carve out a name beyond the Harris dynasty. Yet that desire collided violently with his impulsive nature. King's public behavior had long reflected a pattern of aggression and recklessness. The Waffle House meltdown, where he threatened staff on live video, mocking a homeless man in so-called challenges, confrontations with his father captured on social media, and multiple legal incidents including DUIs and warrants. Each event stacked upon the last, creating a clear arc: impulsivity cloaked in bravado, insecurity masked by a desire to appear built like that. T.I. recognized the pattern early. He tried repeatedly to intervene, to guide, to prevent escalation. His counsel came from a lived experience that spanned brushes with the law, street survival, and navigating the unforgiving music industry. Yet each attempt at guidance met resistance. King wasn't interested in caution. He wanted validation of the persona he had constructed. The soft, rich kid narrative infuriated him, and in a desperate bid for autonomy and respect, he doubled down on conflict, often escalating situations rather than diffusing them. And then came 50 Cent. Unlike most figures in hip-hop, 50 Cent doesn't react impulsively. He waits, he observes, he calculates. He uses humor, strategy, business leverage, and psychological warfare to dismantle opponents, sometimes years after a perceived slight. For King, the stakes weren't theoretical. The moment he invoked Sabrina Jackson's death, he activated a trigger that few had ever dared to touch. King's anger wasn't subtle. In videos, his expression shifted from frustration to smugness, almost a dare. He leaned into the camera, voice rising with a combination of rage and confidence, delivering the line that would haunt him for the weeks to come: "Post your mama grave nah." The words weren't just disrespect. They were a challenge, a public declaration of war, and a potential death sentence in hip-hop terms. The internet's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Fans, industry insiders, commentators, all recognized the peril. King had crossed a line unspoken but universally acknowledged. 50 Cent's mother's death isn't fodder for casual disses. It's trauma enshrined in the foundation of 50's life and career. And King had mocked it, publicly, knowingly, and with a performative bravado that made it clear he understood the weight but chose to defy it anyway. T.I. watched with a mixture of frustration and fear. Sources close to the family revealed that he immediately tried to call King, likely multiple times. Calls went unanswered. Insiders described T.I.'s feelings not as anger but as terror for his son's safety and career. One source stated, "My son doesn't know who he's dealing with. 50 Cent doesn't lose. He never forgets. He's methodical." For the public, the fascination was dual: the raw audacity of King's actions and the unseen, lurking threat of 50 Cent's response. In hip-hop, silence is a signal. 50's initial quiet after King's video suggested that he was observing, calculating, preparing for a move that would be measured but devastating. Bloggers and analysts exploded with speculation. Why hasn't 50 responded yet? What's he planning? Then came the first public indicator of 50 Cent's awareness. He followed King on social media. No comment, no post, no hint, just a silent, predatory acknowledgement. The act alone sent tremors across the internet. "He's watching," read one viral comment. "This isn't a joke. He's archiving everything. Every slip, every post, every laugh is now evidence." King, oblivious to, or perhaps daring this surveillance, went live again. He laughed, gestured, and proclaimed his fearlessness. "I ain't scared of no 50, that old head. This real life, not no show." His followers reacted with a mixture of awe, horror, and disbelief. The pattern was clear. Impulse had overtaken strategy. Bravado had trumped caution. But the story didn't stop there. A longer, uncut version of King's rant emerged, being shopped for sale. A blogger with industry connections confirmed the clip existed and was being sold for $25,000. The revelation sent another shockwave. Someone close enough to capture King's most volatile, personal meltdown was willing to profit from it. Even more chilling, the footage reportedly ended up in 50 Cent's hands. Ownership alone was a threat. 50 didn't need to post, troll, or release a response immediately. Simply possessing the uncut footage gave him control. Every nuance, every laugh, every repeated insult, every detail that made King appear reckless, impulsive, and unaware was now cataloged. 50 had leverage that could destroy reputation, career, and influence. The internet understood. King had walked willingly into a predator's den, armed only with ego. The viral fallout became a study in tension. Comment sections overflowed with warnings. "Someone get T.I. to confiscate his phone. He's toying with a demon. This isn't just a beef, it's a trap." Analysts disassembled the clip frame by frame, searching for context, tone, and intent. The narrative shifted from public spectacle to a lesson in caution, privilege, and the dangers of youthful impulse against seasoned expertise. Industry insiders pointed to King's motivations: defense of family, loyalty to Tiny Harris, desire for public validation, and a need to assert autonomy in the shadow of his father's legacy. But observers noted the cost of acting without strategy in hip-hop's unforgiving ecosystem. T.I. may have prepared his son for battles in music and business, but no preparation could shield him from crossing a boundary that 50 Cent never allows to be breached. King's history of escalation mattered here. From viral tantrums to legal encounters, each prior misstep amplified the danger. 50 Cent's network of information, surveillance, and industry connections meant that consequences could ripple far beyond social media. Mocking a personal, irreplaceable loss like Sabrina Jackson's death was not just disrespectful, it was an actionable provocation. Fans speculated endlessly. Who captured the uncut footage? How long had they been recording? Was this a setup? Would 50 Cent respond immediately or let King self-destruct online, allowing the footage to erode his credibility, reputation, and influence before making a decisive move? The online discourse became a pulse of tension. Every new post, every story update, every subtle signal amplified the stakes. Meanwhile, King's own behavior seemed to embrace escalation. He continued posting provocative content, engaging in arguments online, sharing snippets that mocked the feud, and even promoting cannabis products branded provocatively around the controversy. Each move increased visibility, increased risk, and drew more eyes from those who understood that 50 Cent doesn't treat such provocations lightly. The psychological dimension of the feud became clear. King wasn't just in a war with 50 Cent. He was in a conflict with perception, legacy, and the very infrastructure of hip-hop respect. He had forced himself into a position where every choice, every post, every interaction carried potential consequences, not just socially but in career longevity and personal safety. By the end of the week, the public narrative had crystallized. King Harris had made a daring, almost suicidal move into territory no young, inexperienced public figure should have entered. T.I.'s interventions, experience, and guidance could mitigate damage, but they could not erase the act itself. 50 Cent, by remaining silent, had already won the first round, letting King's ego and impulsivity expose him fully. King's mistake was obvious to all. Bravado had replaced strategy, impulse had overridden judgment, and in doing so, he had placed himself squarely in the path of one of hip-hop's most unforgiving forces. The world watched not with excitement but with apprehension. What would come next? When would 50 Cent respond? How devastating would it be? And most importantly, could King Harris survive the consequences of stepping where no one else dared? In that viral video, King Harris thought he was asserting power. In reality, he had handed it to a man who never loses, never forgets, and who treats disrespect as a currency for long-game strategy. Every viewer understood it immediately, which is why timelines went silent, comment sections froze, and the internet collectively held its breath. The tension wasn't hypothetical. It was real, immediate, and terrifying. The reckless bravado of a young man, the strategic patience of a seasoned titan, and the high stakes of legacy, grief, and respect had collided in a spectacle that transcended viral drama. The fallout, already underway, promised to reshape narratives, careers, and reputations for months, if not years, to come. King Harris didn't wake up intending to destroy himself, but in that impulsive, furious moment, he did just that. He challenged a legend at his most sacred boundary, exposing vulnerability, inexperience, and ego in ways that social media alone could not contain. And now, with 50 Cent quietly holding every uncut angle of the meltdown, the world waits, knowing that the next move is not just inevitable. It will be surgical, relentless, and unforgettable. The lesson, as observers quickly noted, was clear. In hip-hop, respect isn't given, it's earned. And some lines, once crossed, cannot be uncrossed. King Harris had learned this the hardest way possible, publicly, brutally, and in front of a world that refused to look away. The internet had exploded once, but now the chaos had entered a new dimension. King Harris hadn't just disrespected 50 Cent. He had walked directly into a minefield, and the fuse was already lit. What began as a heated defense of his mother, Tameka "Tiny" Harris, and a retort to an unflattering post, quickly escalated into something far more volatile, a public unraveling captured in a clip that would reverberate across the world. The first shockwave came in the simplest form, a single powerful image posted by 50 Cent. The photograph showed his mother, Sabrina Jackson, standing proud, eyes sharp and determined even in archival prints. The caption was stark: "Say her name again." The internet froze. Even detractors, those who had spent years trolling, criticizing, or mocking the G-Unit mogul, paused. This wasn't about music or albums or industry feuds or even reality TV drama. It was deeply personal. And 50 Cent handled personal matters with an unforgiving precision that had long been his trademark. For weeks, this image reverberated through social media like a warning shot. King Harris, initial bravado, the reckless clip that mocked the death of 50 Cent's mother, suddenly seemed naive and almost childish. 50's calculated response was devastating in its simplicity. It was a quiet assertion of control. The message was clear, the line was drawn, and the young Harris world just got infinitely smaller. But the twists didn't end there. Reports soon surfaced that the original uncut footage of King's rant had been sold not just once, but twice. One copy ended up with 50 Cent, of course, a move that confirmed every fan's suspicion that he wasn't idle, that every nuance of King's meltdown was now under his control. But the second copy went to an unknown buyer, someone harboring a long-standing grudge against T.I. or his circle. Suddenly, the stakes were multiplied. 2 copies, 2 potential detonators, 2 parties armed with explosive material capable of igniting a firestorm beyond anyone's control. T.I., usually calculated and media-savvy, found himself cornered. King, still oblivious to the scale, continued posting as if nothing had changed. The silence of 50 Cent and the existence of a second buyer created a tension that seemed almost unbearable, a slow-burning threat whose timing was entirely out of anyone's hands. What most people missed, however, was the darker layer hiding beneath the viral outrage. The true story wasn't just what King had said, it was who was behind the camera. For days, no one paid attention to the faint, almost imperceptible voice caught in the background, egging King on. "Say it again, bro," the voice prompted right before King delivered the line about the grave. At first, observers dismissed it as incidental, just a friend encouraging the young Harris to speak his mind. But a blogger digging deeper redirected attention. "Y'all looking at the wrong person. Check the shadows." Fans began to rewind, slow down, and enhance the audio. The chilling realism. Tian hit. King didn't start recording, he didn't go live, and he certainly didn't post the clip himself. Someone else had orchestrated the capture, someone who stayed off frame but had full control over the camera, framing every shot, guiding every moment, and prompting the most destructive statements. Threads erupted as people began identifying the voice and cross-referencing social circles. "I know that dude. He runs ATL videographer circles," one person wrote. "He's connected to people who have worked with 50's media team, always causing drama, always monetizing chaos." It quickly became clear that King had been, at best, enabled and at worst, deliberately set up. The footage wasn't merely a spontaneous outburst. It was bait in a well-planned trap. Someone saw the opportunity to profit off his impulsivity, to turn a young man's insecurities and rage into a viral commodity. The chilling truth settled in. King had walked willingly into a storm without realizing the winds were being steered by an unseen hand. Now, the beef had evolved far beyond family defense or petty jabs. It revealed vulnerabilities across multiple layers. King's insecurity-driven impulsivity, T.I.'s struggle to guide a son determined to earn street cred he never needed, and 50 Cent's mastery of long-game warfare. What began as a post mocking Tiny Harris spiraled into something irreversible. Personal trauma had been weaponized, private meltdowns commodified, and alliances, both familial and professional, were tested in ways that might never be repaired. The psychological dimension of this feud was now impossible to ignore. T.I., known for his strategic mind and industry savviness, reportedly entered full crisis mode. A source close to the Harris household described him pacing for hours, not yelling or lecturing, but muttering a single phrase over and over. "They using my son." He understood the dangers, having lived through the era when rivals recorded every misstep, twisted every story, and sold it for clout. But King, he thought he was being tough, proving loyalty to his mother, defending his family, and asserting his independence. The reality was far more sinister. He had been baited, recorded, and weaponized against himself. The uncut footage, the so-called second copy, and 50 Cent's ownership of the first copy introduced a new form of warfare. This wasn't emotional retaliation or the posting of a meme, it was strategic acquisition. By purchasing the footage, 50 Cent turned King's meltdown into his property. Every word, gesture, laugh, and outburst now belonged to him. He could control the narrative, edit it, release it, or leverage it at the precise moment for maximum impact. and the second buyer. The unknown ATL figure introduced unpredictability into an already volatile equation. No one knew when or how that copy might surface, or how far-reaching the damage could be if wielded strategically. King remained defiantly active online, posting clips, taunts, and commentary as if oblivious to the stakes. "Y'all scared of some old man? I ain't," he wrote in one post. Comments erupted, tearing him apart. "You're not fighting 50, you're fighting his bank account. He already owns your rant, dummy." It was textbook self-sabotage, a gambling of his future on fleeting bravado, untempered by wisdom or experience. Industry insiders, celebrities, and analysts weighed in. Rick Ross cryptically posted on Instagram, "A lion don't roar until he's ready to bite." Boosie Badazz urged restraint, going live. "Y'all gotta tell Lil Bro to chill, he ain't outside like that." Charlamagne Tha God dissected the feud on air. "This is the worst move I've ever seen a celebrity kid make." And 50 Cent himself contributed once more, not with words but with a single image, a chessboard captioned again, "Say it again." Fans erupted. The chessboard, symbolizing strategy and patience, signaled that the feud was no longer a casual skirmish. It was calculated, methodical, and deadly precise. T.I., trapped between fatherly instinct and public spectacle, reportedly confronted the cameraman furious. He wasn't recording a moment, a source told a blogger. He was recording evidence. Every father's nightmare came to life. Your child's impulsive actions, captured and weaponized by someone else. The realization that the uncut footage existed, footage in which King allegedly insulted his father, amplified the crisis. Now, emotional dynamite existed, ready to be detonated by anyone with access. The countdown intensified. King's defiance persisted, his public posts oblivious to the complex chessboard around him. Meanwhile, 50 Cent remained silent, letting tension build, letting the unknown ATL buyer lurk in the shadows. This was no longer a beef. It was a calculated countdown to a potential catastrophe, with consequences spanning reputation, legacy, and family bonds. As the viral clip amassed millions of views, the internet became a battlefield across platforms. Twitter, now X, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube. The discussion shifted from whether King went too far to the more chilling question: was he destroying himself and his father in real time? The spectacle had escalated beyond a single moment, becoming a public unraveling of a family. Hashtags trended relentlessly. Pray for T, King Harris Walden again, 50 Cent responds when, and the viral released the full video. Fans demanded the uncut footage, hungry for the moment King allegedly crossed irreparably. The hip-hop industry collectively shook its head. Analysts, producers, rappers, DJs, and bloggers weighed in. Academics called out, "Bro, King just risked T.I.'s whole legacy for a 20-minute meltdown. You don't poke 50. DJ Drama tweeted, "Some lessons come too late." Fat Joe posted, "Respect the OGs or the game will teach you." Even comedians like Lil Duval joked, "King playing GTA in real life, man." The culture's unwritten rules were clear. Mocking a murdered parent wasn't a bar, a diss, or a joke. It was a violation of the most sacred codes in hip-hop. Even street figures who disliked 50 Cent admitted, "Yeah, nah, the boy went too far." Former affiliates of G-Unit fueled speculation. 50 ain't responding yet because he's choosing which version to drop first. Replies exploded. Which version? There's more. How long is the uncut? Fear had shifted from what King said in the public clip to what might have been said in hidden segments. Potential damage far beyond a meme or diss track, capable of severing family bonds. TikTok intensified the hysteria as creators analyzed body language, tone, and context. "He's unstable," one user wrote. "He was baited, didn't grasp the consequences." Comparisons flew fast. Chris Brown never crossed this line, I didn't go nuclear, even the game stayed restrained. Conspiracies swirled. Did 50 pay the cameraman? Was the meltdown orchestrated? Dramatic edits emerged. Slow-motion zooms on T.I.'s past interviews, overlays of 50 Cent smirking, clips from prior warnings replayed against King's meltdown. TikTok transformed the saga into a gripping miniseries of suspense. Instagram and YouTube blogs amplified the hysteria. The Shade Room reposted relentlessly. Hollywood Unlocked consulted body language experts. Vlad TV circulated King's arrest footage. No Jumper ran polls. Should 50 respond? 91% of respondents answered yes. Even Tony Yeo weighed in, cigar in hand. If 50 moves, it's calculated. He don't beef emotional, he beefs strategic. Observers recognize the pattern. 50 Cent doesn't react immediately. He plots, waits, and strikes when leverage is maximized. T.I.'s silence or perceived inaction further fueled panic. Fans speculated, is he embarrassed? Containing damage, hunting the second buyer, trying to prevent leaks. A family source revealed the truth. T.I. was reeling from betrayal, furious at the setup, terrified for his son's future, and heartbroken over potential private insults recorded forever. The saga revealed raw vulnerabilities, King's impulsive insecurity, T.I.'s struggle to guide a son chasing unearned credibility, and 50 Cent's mastery of patience and control. What began as a mocking post about Tiny spiraled into a multi-layered crisis. Private rants were commodified, personal trauma weaponized, trust shattered, and legacies threatened. The public remained glued to updates. Every post, every comment, every subtle signal was dissected. No one knew when the uncut clip would drop or who would release it first. T.I. faced impossible choices: protect his son at the risk of wider fallout, or let harsh lessons teach what words couldn't. King, still defiant, remained blind to the strategic trap closing around him. This wasn't the explosion's peak, it was a tense buildup. The real war was looming, and when it erupted, the aftermath could scar careers, reputations, and family dynamics for years. Hip-hop had seen feuds end legacies before, but rarely with stakes this personal, this predatory, and this unforgiving. King Harris had been deliberately set up, ensnared in a trap he never saw coming. His impulsivity had been exploited by hidden hands, his words transformed into currency for enemies. Inside the Harris household, chaos reigned. T.I. understood the harsh realities of fame, having survived a generation where rivals monetized mistakes and reputations could be ruined overnight. King, however, had assumed the battlefield was merely social media. It was. He was now playing a high-stakes chess game with pieces he didn't even recognize. The first move had already been executed. 50 Cent acquired the uncut footage, holding leverage that could devastate King personally and professionally. The second copy existed, shrouded in anonymity, its potential impact unpredictable, yet undeniably dangerous. Each day that passed heightened the tension, forcing T.I. into crisis mode, while King continued to post publicly, unaware that the war had shifted from impulsive words to long-term strategy and ruthless calcula. Tian. The internet, as always, remained glued. Fans, analysts, and insiders dissected every move, every post, every shadow in the footage. Social media had become a war room, and every user a participant in a narrative unfolding in real time. Yet, despite the hysteria, one fact remained undeniable. The Harris family had been caught in a trap. Personal trauma, impulsive behavior, and the relentless strategies of 50 Cent had collided in a perfect storm. A storm that promised destruction, spectacle, and lessons in humility, patience, and the unforgiving nature of hip-hop's unwritten rules. King Harris, for all his bravado, remained unaware of the full scale. He posted, he ranted, he challenged. But the game had already shifted. The pieces were in motion, and the outcome depended not on volume or visibility, but on patience, leverage, and precision. When the next move comes, and everyone knew it would not be about tweets, clips, or memes. It would be about control, strategy, and a reckoning that could leave lasting scars on everyone involved. The internet was awash in empathy and raw emotion, but the response was fractured. Social media exploded with comments that ranged from sorrow to disbelief. "That's the kind of hurt money can't fix," one person wrote. "Imagine your own child being weaponized to destroy you from the inside," another added. Fans mourned the Harris family's privacy, lamenting the cruelty of fame. T.I. doesn't deserve this. He's been through enough. Read another post. Sympathy, however, was far from universal. A vocal segment of fans flipped the script, shifting blame squarely onto T.I. He spoiled King Rotten, one user claimed. T.I. let him talk wild for years without real consequences. He built this monster himself, argued another. Overnight, public opinion splintered. The narrative was no longer simply about King Harris' reckless behavior. It became a critique of the Harris family itself, portrayed as fractured under the weight of privilege, poor boundaries, and unchecked ego. The industry took note, the conversation evolving from casual debate to judgment. The Harris family, once revered for their successes and influence, was now perceived as vulnerable, teetering under the pressures of fame and public scrutiny. The second buyer of the uncut footage remained a ghost, a mysterious figure whose identity obsessed the internet. Social media sleuths went to work. Who would hate T.I. enough to drop serious cash on a private video of his son's meltdown? Who could benefit from publicly humiliating one of hip-hop's most prominent families? Old grudges resurfaced in theory after theory. Former collaborators with lingering bitterness, Atlanta producers sidelined in past deals, trap-era figures who felt T.I. had gone too Hollywood. Even names like Gucci Mane and Jeezy, alongside lesser-known promoters and associates, were dragged into speculation. Each old tweet, every deleted post, and obscure interview became fodder for the hunt. The anonymity of the second buyer made it worse. Anyone in T.I.'s orbit could be the traitor, eroding trust and amplifying paranoia within the inner circle. Meanwhile, King went unusually quiet. No new rants, no defiant posts, at least not publicly. Blogs and fan pages speculated frantically. Is he hiding? One asked. Did T.I. finally take his phone? Another posited. Is he prepping another explosion? The silence unnerved the public more than his previous outburst ever had. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, a small account, barely followed but widely shared, dropped a bombshell. The full video drops Friday. Timelines ignited instantly. Questions spread like wildfire. Who has it? Which version? Is this legit? T.I. better lawyer up now. The inevitability of the leak settled into collective consciousness. People realized this wasn't going away. It was accelerating toward a point of no return. The most terrifying speculation centered not on King's defiance or his online antics, but on the rumored unseen segment, the part where he allegedly crossed into family territory. A line so cutting, so intimate, so laden with years of buried resentment. It could leave scars that no public statement or social media post could repair. Then came a twist that shifted the crisis from speculation to raw reality. T.I., quietly and discreetly, obtained the uncut footage, not from 50 Cent, not from the original seller, and certainly not through legal channels. Someone inside his trusted circle, aware of the potential fallout, sent him a private link. What T.I. witnessed reportedly shattered him far more than any viral clip ever could. A source close to the family described the moment. Tip put his head in his hands and didn't speak for 5 full minutes. The horror was not directed at 50 Cent or the audacious mention of his mother's grave. It was the content, something profoundly personal, raw, and unforgiving, delivered by his own son. T.I. allegedly begged in private, "Don't ever let this hit the internet." But the nightmare deepened. He wasn't alone. 50 Cent had a copy. The mysterious ATL buyer had a copy. Insiders refused to share the words publicly, recognizing the emotional shrapnel they contained. Descriptions converged, however. The statements weren't about 50 or Tiny. They were about T.I. directly, spilling years of unspoken resentment, frustrations simmering in silence, cracks in their father-son relationship that T.I. had shielded from the public eye. The words struck with a precision that no diss track or social media clapback could counter. This was a father's worst fear, surviving industry wars only to be wounded by the one person he had spent a lifetime guiding and protecting. Hours later, a chilling anonymous message landed on T.I.'s phone. "You can't stop what's coming." The source of the second copy wasn't just a random enemy T.I. suspected. It was someone who knew the family intimately, someone from his past who understood vulnerabilities few outsiders could perceive. The knowledge of the assailant's identity paralyzed him. Acting on it could escalate the situation, confirming authenticity or inviting retaliation. Silence, T.I. realized, was his only weapon. King, meanwhile, refused to acknowledge the gravity of the situation. He continued posting sporadically, maintaining a veneer of invincibility. "They can't touch me. I'm good," he wrote in one post. Sources revealed T.I. confronted him privately. "You ain't fighting 50, you're fighting me." The distinction was subtle but damning. King believed he was targeting a celebrity, a public figure far removed from his personal life. In reality, he had handed the perfect weapon to his father's enemies. 50 Cent wasn't after a young man. He was attacking a legacy, a reputation, a family empire built over decades. That night, 50 Cent executed a move both silent and devastating. He posted an Instagram story, a folder icon labeled Harris Files Do Not Open, accompanied by a laughing emoji. The internet exploded. He really has a whole folder. 50's about to unload everything. T.I. better pray this is pettiness at Olympic levels. Fans dissected the screenshot. At the bottom, blurred but visible, was another label, Video 2, King vs. Blurred Name. Speculation went into overdrive. Could the uncut footage include more than King's solo meltdown? Perhaps a private confrontation, an argument, or a revelation tied to someone in Atlanta's music scene. The implications were staggering. The Harris family now faced dual threats: the calculated public humiliation planned by 50 Cent and the private vengeance potentially wielded by the ATL buyer. Behind closed doors, T.I. struggled to maintain composure. A close friend leaked details to a blogger. "I've never seen Tip this scared, not for himself, for his boy. He said King doesn't know what he started." The stakes were now terrifyingly clear. 50 Cent wielded proof, waiting to time the blow for maximum effect. The ATL buyer's motives were unpredictable and potentially devastating. The footage was not mere entertainment. It was a loaded gun, aimed at the very heart of the family. Rumors circulated further when the burner account that hinted at the Friday drop struck again. "This video going change everything y'all think about King Harris and everything T.I. been hiding." The internet detonated once more. What has T.I. been hiding? Family scandal? Why Friday? Fans speculated endlessly. Hidden audio, deleted pleas, King's unfiltered rage, the mystery buyer's identity, and 50 Cent's strategic moves. Anticipation became anxiety, and anticipation alone had transformed public perception into collective hysteria. Questions multiplied relentlessly. Would the tape surface? Who would release it first? What exactly did King say about T.I.? How did the ATL buyer fit in? And what was 50 Cent planning? One thing became painfully clear. When the uncut footage dropped, T.I. wouldn't be battling beef or industry gossip. He would be facing ghosts, his son's words immortalized on video, and adversaries wielding his deepest wounds. The saga's grip on social media and public discourse remained unrelenting. Every post, comment, and subtle signal was dissected. Fans and analysts alike theorized endlessly, trying to predict moves, interpret subtle cues, and anticipate the fallout. The Harris family's vulnerabilities, private disagreements, and unspoken histories were scrutinized like never before. The line between public and private life had disappeared entirely, leaving a father and son exposed to a global audience hungry for conflict. The uncut footage wasn't simply a clip, it was an instrument of psychological warfare. One copy was already in 50 Cent's hands, with all the potential to be edited, released strategically, and weaponized to inflict maximum damage. The second copy existed in secrecy, ready to detonate unexpectedly. T.I., now privy to its contents, understood the peril. Knowledge was both power and poison. Any misstep could accelerate destruction, while restraint demanded a level of patience few outside the inner circle could fathom. King Harris, despite all this, remained in a state of denial or defiance. He continued posting, challenging perceived threats and insisting on his own invincibility. Yet the war had already shifted beyond social media. It was a battle of leverage, timing, and control. Every word he had spoken, every move he had made, had been captured and potentially weaponized. His impulsivity had made him a pawn in a game far beyond his comprehension. A game in which 50 Cent was a master, the mystery buyer a hidden wild card, and T.I. a father desperately trying to shield his family from irreparable harm. The countdown to disaster had become public theater. Fans tracked every subtle motion. When T.I. posted, when King's online activity peaked, when 50 Cent shared cryptic images. Analysis, speculation, and hysteria fed upon themselves, creating a feedback loop of tension, fear, and voyeurism. The Harris family's struggle had transcended personal grievance, becoming a narrative consumed globally in real time. And yet the saga refused to reach resolution. The footage existed, and it was held by two powerful adversaries. T.I. had seen the worst of it. 50 Cent wielded his leverage quietly, and the ATL buyer lingered in the shadows. King Harris, unaware or dismissive of the stakes, remained active, oblivious to the forces closing in. The world waited, watching, theorizing, and anticipating the moment when the clock finally ran out. This was no longer a viral blip, a meme, or a fleeting feud. It was a complex, multi-layered confrontation, one that combined the volatility of youth, the precision of a master strategist, and the unpredictability of a hidden adversary. When the footage dropped, it wouldn't just humiliate. It could permanently fracture relationships, careers, and legacies. It was personal, unforgiving, and irreversible. The Harris family, one of hip-hop's most scrutinized dynasties, faced a reckoning unlike any before. The drama surrounding King Harris, T.I., and 50 Cent had escalated far beyond the initial viral rant. From a heated online clash to a full-scale family feud, the stakes had multiplied exponentially. What began as King defending Tiny escalated to a reference to 50 Cent's late mother, a transgression that triggered a chain reaction involving multiple parties, hidden agendas, and the weaponization of private pain. Inside the Harris household, tension reportedly remains at a boiling point. Sources describe T.I. as protective yet frustrated, proud of his son's loyalty but deeply pained by the fallout. King Harris, meanwhile, refuses to step back. Across interviews and social media posts, he addresses fatherhood, growing up famous, and the pressures of living in his father's shadow. He frames his actions as standing on principle, not chasing clout. But the repeated escalation has sparked concerns about the long-term consequences for both his personal and public life. Past legal troubles and public missteps linger in the background, a reminder that King's impulsivity isn't new. The ongoing feud has only intensified scrutiny, highlighting his struggle to establish an identity separate from privilege, fame, and family legacy. Each post, video, or cryptic comment is dissected, feeding speculation about where boundaries have been crossed and what risks remain. The incendiary moment, the mention of 50 Cent's late mother, continues to dominate conversation, a cultural violation that hip-hop insiders and fans alike acknowledge as unthinkable. As of mid-March 2026, no definitive resolution has surfaced. Diss tracks still drop sporadically, 50 Cent's trolling remains surgical and strategic, and T.I. walks a precarious line, balancing measured regret with his ongoing mission to protect his family. The rumored Friday drop threats never erupted into career-ending revelations, suggesting either private containment or behind-the-scenes de-escalation, but the emotional scars persist. The episode has exposed a collision of raw truths. A son's insecurity meeting a father's legacy, privilege confronting street code, and a father caught between guidance and consequences. T.I. is navigating ghosts of his own past mistakes reflected in King's actions, while King fights to prove toughness and independence, risking reputation and family ties in the process. 50 Cent, meanwhile, continues to convert chaos into strategy, turning pain into leverage with surgical precision. The feud is less about immediate retaliation and more about long-game domination. Each post, clip, or track a calculated move in an ongoing chess match. The story remains paused, simmering. One post, one leaked clip, or one diss track could reignite the storm. The world watches, divided, waiting to see if the Harris family will pull back before permanent damage, or if 50 Cent's next strategic play delivers checkmate. In hip-hop, some beefs fade quietly, others leave permanent scars. This one feels etched into the culture, a reminder of fame's fragility, the consequences of impulsivity, and the brutal intersections of family and legacy. Where do you stand? Did King go too far, or is T.I. too controlling? Can the father contain the fallout, or is 50 untouchable? The next chapter could drop at any moment, and when it does, the stakes won't just be musical, they'll be personal, strategic, and unforgettable.